listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Well, happy Christmas Eve day, folks. It's December 24th. This is Scotty Roberts. Welcome to my show. This is the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. While you're at it, why don't you come on over and watch the video simulcast of this show playing right now on my YouTube channel, along with the live chat room filled with other Intrepids. Well, it is Christmas Eve. Maybe it's not filled to the full tonight. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see who all wants to come in. Is it past festivity hour and you can now come in and listen to the show, watch the show? Let's find out. So welcome to the chat room. If you're not there now, that's over at youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. While you're there, why don't you come on over and hit the join button and become a member of this channel. And there's perks and everything over there. You can go click on the join button and see what the 3 levels are and the perks you can get. So I want to thank you for being here. It's Merry Christmas. It's Christmas, not Christmas Day. We'll have a special live Christmas show tomorrow night at this time. And that's usually just like we did with Thanksgiving and we do with other holidays. When it starts getting 9 o'clock at night, it's usually you've wound down for the holiday festivities. And I don't know, it's Friday tomorrow, so maybe those festivities will go pretty late. Nobody has to be to work the next day. And so come on over. We're going to do a live Christmas show tomorrow night. Tonight is just plain old regular show for Christmas Eve. And we're going to start by doing our Spark Courage, our Matchbook Courage, building your boldness. Let's dig in here. Let's find something. Let's see if we can go to the bottom and find something we haven't hit already. Let's see. Here we go. I can just tell by the opening words. Let's see what this says. Can you see that and read that? Rock the boat. Do something that will surprise or shock other people. Now, there's some courageousness. That takes a little courageousness. What can you do to rock the boat in your life? What's rocking the boat mean? What's that look like for you? What's it mean to rock the boat and do things? Can you think of something in your life that you could do right now that's going to shock and amaze and surprise other people? Things that aren't expected of you. Maybe it's just simply speaking up for yourself, doing some of the other things we've talked about. Speaking up for yourself, making yourself first, saying no to some things, going out, stepping on a limb, helping other people, surprise other people, do something that takes you out of character. So I'm going to encourage you. There's not much that we really have to get into on this, but have you ever done anything like that before? If you have, what is that? If you're over in the chat room, talk about that for a second. What are some of the things that you have done to step out and be bold and courageous and be different? Shock somebody. Give them the shock value. Now, I'm not talking shock for the sake of shock. You know, hey, I'm gonna flash you in public. I'm not talking about so much that. Or just shock value for the sake of shock value. And sometimes gratuitous shock value is gratuitous, just like it says. And it doesn't mean anything. It's empty, it's vapid, it's void. But what do you do? What have you done? What do you think you can do in your life that's shocking? That's stepping out of maybe even your own comfort zone. Have you ever stepped out of your own comfort zone to do something? Have you ever had people look at you and go, whoa, I did not expect that of that person. I did not expect that of you to act that way. That's shocking. And shocking, we have a negative connotation that we can put on that. That's surprising. So why don't you do that? Now it's Christmas time. It's holiday time. You got about a week left of this year, 2020. What would you do to step out and surprise those around you, to do something shocking, to put yourself first, to express your boldness, your courage, to do something that needs doing? Would that be in the realm of something spiritual? You're going to do this thing in a spiritual level that nobody would expect of you. You're going to do this thing politically. You're going to do this thing helping other people. You're going to do whatever it might be, that you step out and surprise those around you. And so I encourage you to take that little bull by the horns and go out there and make yourself known. So you might surprise somebody. All right, folks, let's move on. Let's get into, again, I could get into politics. I don't want to do that. I want to talk about what's in the stimulus package. We aren't going to do that. I know everybody is moving against the president, saying, I'm going to veto this unless you fix these problems. Even his own party is doing that. Why? Why are they so cocksure that what they've got in there is what needs to be done? Why are they willing to only pay Americans $600, a measly scratch of $600, and yet give billions of dollars to other countries? What's that got to do with stimulus? What's that got to do with shoring up the small businesses in this country that are ma and pa shops, restaurants, bars, places like that need a shot in the arm? Now, some of that is in the bill, but there's all this other crap that's in the bill that needs to be done away with. And the president said, I won't sign this in its present form. Get rid of the crap, then use some of that money to increase payments to the American citizen. Get your personal blackmail list out of it. Get your personal, I got to pay back these people and run this through this bill. This bill shouldn't have anything to do with, gender studies in Pakistan, which is funded by this bill to the tune of, was it 1.4 billion or was it 14 million? I can't remember. There was a figure like that. And there's all these figures, these vast numbers that are in this package that have nothing to do with stimulus for the American people. So complain to your senators and your congressmen. Make a noise about it. People have got, if anything is going to come that is good of all of this stuff, it's that people start speaking up. And speak up about what you believe in. Maybe this is part of that. Do something shocking and surprising. Speak up about what you know is right and true. Don't just speak up for party. Like right now, people think I'm a Republican. I'm not. I'm a conservative independent. More libertarian than anything. But I'll tell you what, even though I had supported the president, I'm going to go against McConnell, Mitch McConnell. I don't think he's in the right on this at all. I think he's got ulterior motives for passing this bill and supporting it. Think of the American people. None of these people in the Senate and in the House are people that have much to worry about financially. Think about the citizens in the country that need that. Think about the businesses that need that stimulus. Get Pakistan, Cambodia, and Vietnam out of that bill. They don't belong there. Take care of that somewhere else. You know why they do this in legislation? So they don't have to go through and privately go through individually go through legislation on things that would normally not pass because they know it's junk. But they tack it onto a big important bill, and then if the president vetoes it, they go, oh, look, the president's against supporting the American people. What a bunch of B as in B, S as in S. Because that's not what the president's doing. The president's saying, you're not helping people enough here. I'm going to veto this bill unless you fix it. Boom. That's what it's about. So we're not going to talk about that today. Let's get right into talking about Enoch. We left off in talking about Enoch yesterday. And just as a slight recap from yesterday, we talked about Enoch. We started with the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and maybe that had to have a model to go by. What was the model of that? We started then talking about we talked about the ziggurats. We talked about the Tower of Babel, which was a ziggurat. And we went to Enoch from there, because Enoch was the original, according to the scripture, the book of Jubilees, which was the lost book of Jubilees for a long time. Did you know that the Old Testament that exists when we hadn't found the book of Jubilees, that book was referenced. And you can find more about the life of David or whoever in the book of the Jubilees. And everybody was like, what's the book of Jubilees? It doesn't exist. A lost book. Then it was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. And there's a lot of stuff in that book. And it talks about how Enoch was the first linguist, if you will. He was given directly the alphabet. He was given directly the language to be able to write. He was the first scribe in human history, according to the book of Jubilees, according to the Bible. And Enoch is one of those strange books in the, should be in the Old Testament. It's not. But in the Old Testament period. And so this unwavering question still remains after looking at all this stuff about Enoch, all this stuff about the Tower of Babel, all this stuff about language. Where did they get the idea to build the Tower of Babel that would be capable of harnessing such powers? And this idea wasn't anything new because it foreshadowed another, earlier, monumental structure that was capable of mastering the inherent powers of the Hebrew language. The people of Shinar sought to harness it once again. And then this brings us to the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the world. Surprisingly, this also brings us back to Enoch. Enoch, you're going to remember, he wasn't only acclaimed to be the first scribe in human history, but he was also the originator of the calendar, like we have now. Different names, different segments of time, but he originated the calendar. In fact, it's entirely possible that all of our modern knowledge concerning the stars, the seasons, comes from Enoch. Pardon me, dry throat. Here, I got a can of something here. I'm going to take a drink. It's not beer, it's Fresca. Refreshing, sparkling soda water, grapefruit, citrus. Anyway, so it's entirely possible that all of the stars, the seasons, what we know about them, the zodiac, and all of this, in essence, it is the zodiac, which consists of the 12 constellations that we have today. This is the chart that links the 12 constellations to 12 divisions of the year, the 12 months, 365 days. Listen to this. Enoch 1, that's the first book of Enoch, 75:3. It says, and the exactness of the year is accomplished through its separate 364 stations. It's in the book of Enoch. For the signs and the times and the years and the days the angel Uriel showed to me, whom the Lord of glory hath set forever over all the luminaries of the heaven, in the heaven and in the world, that they should rule on the face of the heaven, and be seen on the earth, and be leaders for the day and the night. The sun, in other words, the sun, moon, and stars, and all the ministering creatures which make their revolution in all the chariots of the heaven. In like manner 12 doors Uriel showed me. That's all from the book of Enoch. Did you know that the book of Enoch, one of the most ancient books that we have, at least the book we have, references the most ancient book of Enoch, talks about how Enoch, how he started to understand the divisions of the days, he even got it down to 364 days. Now, Enoch's book explains from where his information and knowledge originated. He describes visiting the expanses of the heavenly realm in the form of visions. Now, in the book concerning the heavenly luminaries, Enoch is taken aloft by God's appointed angel Uriel, who showed him the movements of the heavenly bodies and warned him about the future impending flood. He was given instructions for building a type of mechanism in the form of a calendar showing the machinery of the sun and the moon in operation for their survival, so that after the great cataclysmic flood of Noah, they would be able to determine the times for the sowing and the reaping, agriculture, as well as to anticipate the migration of animals and insects that also influence all the plants that they plant. Along with this, he was shown something even far greater involving the precession and the timing of the stars and the constellation as it would revolve around the monthly Jewish holidays, which in turn coincided with biblical prophecies concerning the coming Messiah, referred to frequently by Enoch in his book. Now, he didn't have Jewish holidays yet because there wasn't a Judaism had not been codified, but he had the proto-Hebrew, the proto-Jewish belief system was in place. So with this understanding of the stars, Enoch replicated his knowledge by designing something called the henge. Think of Stonehenge when I say that, which was used as a solar calendar similar to Stonehenge. Enoch 2, chapters 11 through 16, also found in Enoch 1, chapter 72, 1 through 37, for the purpose of showing us how to mark solar coordinates on the horizon by creating a circular henge observatory. The henge observatory would span the length of one solar year, 365 days, and it would keep track of time and the seasons. This henge was made with stones and wooden posts that are aligned to mark the astronomical movements of the planets, the stars, the moon, and the sun. And so by using the sunrise and sunset of the sun, Enoch shows us that he could easily keep track of time using astronomy for the purpose of calculating the seasons. And the final version of the henge was topped off with Enoch building a 365-day calendar, otherwise known as the Great Pyramid of Giza, or the Pillar of Enoch. Now, it's a little far-fetched because we already know the Great Pyramid of Giza was built by Khufu. Cheops, another name. Now, so this is going to be, I'm going to go through this and explain a bit of this. But what is the Great Pyramid of Giza? How is that connected to Enoch? How is that known as the Pillar of Enoch? So the technology of the henge can be seen across the globe. In fact, archaeologists are still finding and unearthing them all throughout the Middle East. There was actually a henge, and we saw this set up. We were in, I think it was Aswan. We were in Aswan, Egypt. And outside the museum there, the Sudanese museum, there was a stone circle that they had removed from its location far out in the desert. And I think Zahi Hawass was part of this. And they had moved it and repositioned it by exact coordinates. Exact measurements and everything. And it's a small circle. If memory serves, not more than 20 feet. And small stones, 4 or 5 feet tall on some of them. Tall, skinny stones and some small stones, and they were re-erected in front of this museum. And so some of this stuff existed a long time ago. The technology, the henge, so you can be seen everywhere around the globe. It was a device that helped us navigate by the stars to note the seasons. And the same technology was also designed in other astronomical devices, such as Stonehenge, the ancient Mayan pyramid of Chichen Itza in the Yucatan in Mexico. That was also used as a calendar. The pyramid of Chichen Itza has 4 stairways, each with 91 steps going to the top, and a platform at the top, which total 365 days in a year. Now, also, the Aztec temples, as well as the China and Japan pyramids, were used as calendars. Even the pyramids of the Americas were found to be used as a lunisolar calendar. So perhaps the construction of all of these pyramids combines as a worldwide pyramid system that was intentionally mounted on key meridians of the earth. Therefore, we must conclude that this technology was in existence, that there was a man named Enoch that lived before the great flood of Noah who educated the world with this knowledge. Now, we can't prove that about Noah. We can't conclude conclusively, that was redundant, that Enoch even existed, because we don't know if the Bible is the truth. We don't know if this guy really was around. The great flood of Noah, we know scientifically that there was universal flooding on this planet. Do we know that it was the flood of Noah? No, we don't know that for sure. So we don't know that it was Enoch that educated people. But if we're going with the storyline that we're picking up in the book of Enoch, in the book of Jubilees, in the book of Genesis, Enoch, we can say for the sake of this study that Enoch was the guy who passed this stuff on. And I don't know, we always seem to have a problem when there is a luminary character like an Enoch, like a Jesus, like a Moses, like an Abraham, like a Noah, that we want to doubt that these people ever go, no, those people didn't really exist. It's all just mythology, we're told. It's all a bunch of tales, tall tales. Maybe some of the things around, they were tales that were used to try to tell the story for people to easily understand it. Yet, I think with my studies on Moses, being one of the characters I've studied, there's a lot of proof that the man lived. So to say that Enoch did not exist, I think takes just as much chutzpah to say he did exist. Because we don't know for sure to prove he existed. The only proof we have is, ancient writings that are supposed to be historical, spiritual documents. Oh, well, you can't believe that. That was part of the Bible, Well, it's not really. It's its own separate book, and it was booted from the Bible. So Enoch passed this knowledge down to Methuselah, down to Lamech, down to Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, and the following generations. And after the great flood, Noah gave us the epact that is later found recorded again in Genesis by Moses for the lunisolar calendar, which also incorporates the constellations. From Noah, it gravitated its way down to Shem, to Abraham, who was later commanded to teach it to the Egyptians. The Egyptians later passed this knowledge down to the Greeks, and finally to the Romans, also known as the Calendarium, meaning account book in Latin. And this is how we arrived at our modern-day calendars, which were received from the Romans, but in truth, originally from Enoch, who received it from God. So how can we know for sure that Enoch was the original designer and the builder of the Great Pyramid? That's a big step to take. You try to get an Egyptologist to attest to that, you're going to have a problem with that. How do we know he was the builder? How can we come to that kind of a conclusion? Since it's against the mainstream archaeology, which suggests that Khufu was the builder. Well, let's look at that when we come back. You guys sit tight for 2 minutes. We'll be right back, and we'll talk about this some more. right, gang, welcome back. Thanks for sitting on through that break. This is Scotty Roberts, your host of the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. You can also come over to my YouTube channel and view the YouTube video simulcast of this program. At the same time, you can join the live chat room, a lively bunch of Intrepids going on right now, even though it's Christmas Eve. And so, by the way, Merry Christmas. Welcome to the show. And go over to youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts and join the chat room now. You can watch this video in its play right now. So we're talking about Enoch. We're talking about the holy language. This is all still on that same series about the holy language, the sacred language that came to us originally from the originator, the creator. And we're down to Enoch now. We're talking about Enoch. Is it possible to look at one of the great wonders of the world, the Great Pyramid of Cheops, of Khufu, and say that was designed by Enoch, a guy who wrote a book in the Bible, a guy that the Bible says, and Enoch walked with God and was not, for God took him. The implication in the linguistics of the text being God loved him, cared for him so much that he took him, and he did not suffer death. It's one of the other passages in the Bible says that God didn't want him to suffer death, but took him, walked him right into, it's like walking him right into heaven. Come on, and of course we can make light of that. This is all very high, esoteric, wildly spiritual stuff. If we get it out of the realm of storybook, we've relegated biblical text to storybooks. What if that was a history that involved just as much a history of, say, like, start looking at the Masons, you start looking at Templars, you look at their history, and you start to find out, now I'm not a Templar, I'm not a Mason. I've got a bunch of friends who are. Sometimes we talk about stuff, and some of my friends who are very knowledgeable go, you're not supposed to know that. And so there are things out there, I know, that is knowledge that's there. And it doesn't hurt anything that we know it. Nobody's going to kill us or off us. It's just things that used to be taught in secret. Now, I've asked the question, how can we know for sure that Enoch was the original designer of the Great Pyramid? Now, we've already got passages from Enoch that talk about him originating the calendar, about building henges, these calendar stones. We already know this about him. And he would have lived 5,000 BCE. So what makes us think that he was the designer of the Great Pyramid and not Khufu, which is what an Egyptologist will tell you? Now, I'm stepping on some precarious limbs with this. This is a theory. I'm still a firm believer that Khufu built the pyramid. But was there an influence from Enoch? Let's look at this a little bit. Amazingly, Enoch went above and beyond his schematics of the Great Pyramid of Giza in such a way as to verify and validate that he was the original designer. He put his mark on it for all time. He did this by leaving us clues identifying himself. Did you know that? And the knowledge given to him by God with a mark that no Egyptian could refurbish over. They couldn't erase it, they couldn't redo it, they couldn't get rid of his presence. If one is familiar with the Hebrew language, Enoch's name can be easily seen on the Great Pyramid. And one of the most helpful hints in this is realizing this is by recognizing that Enoch's name is very similar to the Hebrew word for inch. Enoch, inch. The Hebrew word for inch is Aleph, Yud, Nun, Tzadi, and pronounced Ink, which is very similar, if not almost identical, to Enoch's name. Another interesting note is that Enoch's name in Hebrew signifies him as the initiate or the initiator, leading us to wonder exactly what did he initiate. Remember when we talked a long time ago, we were talking about the mystery religions that are kind of beneath the Jewish religion, beneath Christianity, beneath all the religions that are out there, the mystery religions. And we talked about being initiated into not just the esoteric, but the exoteric, bringing them in. So the vital question one has to ask is, what could be the significance of Enoch's name in relevance to the almost identical word inch? The answer to this can be found in Genesis 5:23 in your Old Testament. It says, "So all the days of Enoch were 365 years." There's a clue. 365. Enoch lived to be 365 years. Interestingly, when the Great Pyramid is measured in inches, it's equivalent to 1 solar year, which is 365 days. 1 solar year is equal to 36524.22. So each year of Enoch's life was the span of 1 pyramidal inch. And it used throughout the entire construction of the Great Pyramid. Now, this can be derived by the length of the base, the pyramid walls. That's my children squealing outside of my studio. Sorry about that. I'm not so soundproof here that you can't hear that. And I've already told them, because they were doing that 2 minutes before I started today, I said, please don't scream like that. Mike is going to pick that up. So if you heard that, that's what that was. So each year of Enoch's life was a span of a pyramid inch, 1 pyramid inch, and used throughout the entire construction of this Great Pyramid. And this can be derived by the length of the base, the pyramid walls, that's from corner to corner in a straight line, which is 9,131 inches. There are 4 walls. 9,131 times 4 equals 36,524 total inches. 1 solar year is equal to 36,524.22. And so if when rounded up, this becomes 365. The second formula for realizing that the Great Pyramid was built by Enoch, or at least, in the very least, inspired by his design, his calendar designs that you find in the book of Enoch, is by the average height of land above sea level, which is 5,449 inches, which can be determined. That's the average height of land that's above sea level, 5,449 inches, which can only be determined by modern-day satellite technology. 5,449 is also the accurate vertical height, you guessed it, of the Great Pyramid. And its summit platform. Modern satellites have given the measurements of the highest and lowest elevations of land above sea level. The average median of the two is 5,449 inches due to sea level fluctuations. And it's also the height of the Great Pyramid in the sacred Jewish inch. And so a note of reference, the pyramid's sacred inch is almost the same unit of measure that is used today, where 12 inches is equivalent to 1 foot. So perhaps that's because it's extremely close, with only 1.5 centimeters difference. That much difference. So 5,449 and 365 also work ingeniously in conjunction with another piece of evidence. Guess what? The missing capstone of the Pyramid of Cheops, the Great Pyramid, which is considered the summit platform. You can go up to the top of the Great Pyramid now. There's a platform up there. You can walk around on it. It's flat, roughly. It's rough because, it's just stonework, and it's like a cobblestone, but up there, but with bigger stones. So the Great Pyramid is said to have sported a capstone in the past. And if there was a capstone, then the Great Pyramid's height would be 5,814 inches. And they can determine this by, of course, just taking the measurements. What would take it to a final point at the top with this capstone? 5,814 inches. Because of this, people are confused and erroneously believe that the Great Pyramid, as some of the photos suggest, has a pointed top. However, this isn't the case. The pyramids in Egypt were usually crowned with a capstone. And in fact, several capstones have been found unattached and buried in the sandy ground nearby. But the Great Pyramid actually has a flat, truncated top to it. Just go look it up on Google. I didn't save a photo. Again, I should have done that ahead of time. But you can go look up and see, what does the top of the Great Pyramid look like? And you'll see. I've seen pictures of people standing up there. I think, wasn't there a picture I saw? I know Zawi Hawass I saw up there. I think Graham Hancock was up there once. You have to get special permission to go to the top of the pyramid. You get caught up there, you can be thrown in Egyptian jail to rot forever. So, there's that. So, there are people living up there. It's a pyramid. It looks like it's about 12, 15 feet by 12, 15 feet. Something like that. So, and it's flat up there. Rough, but it's flat, not pointy. So pyramids in Egypt are usually crowned with these capstones. Today there's a triangular antenna device that's been placed on top to demonstrate what's thought to be the approximate dimension of the capstone. Some researchers propose that there was once a capstone that rested on this top, while others hold the idea that the capstone was never entirely completed. And still other experts speculate that it was stolen or removed, that it was made of gold. Then at some point in history, and even some suggest that the capstone may have never been part of the original design, because there are no reports in recorded history of anyone ever in recorded history seeing the Great Pyramid with a capstone. And so, but there is this antenna-looking device that's set up there to kind of give you the idea of what a capstone would have done. So from the tip of the missing apex, the antenna-looking device, kind of the invisible capstone up there, if you take from the tip of that, the pyramid has a total of 5,814 pyramid inches. Now subtract that, but these numbers are gonna blow your mind. Subtract that by the summit platform inches from ground to summit of 5,449. And once again, it equates to 365 pyramid inches, the exact days in a year. And again, more evidence that Enoch was the designer of the Great Pyramid. Possibly. So this leaves a valuable piece of the puzzle indicating, while validating the exact and original height of the Great Pyramid, it was never supposed to be 5,814 pyramid inches, but the 5,449 pyramid inches with no capstone. So therefore, because of the missing capstone measuring 365 additional inches, it bears witness to the accurate total number of pyramid inches, 5,449. Now, if it can't be seen that the number 365 plays a vital role in naming Enoch as its designer, to all intents and purposes, it repeats yet again with the missing capstone, if indeed there was one. So, mind blown yet by the mathematics? Now, we can't prove that it was Enoch who did this. All we've got are accounts in Enoch, accounts in other ancient writings that state that Enoch devised the calendar, that he devised the days of the year. It's even spelled out in Enoch, the number of days. It's spelled out in the Book of Jubilees. So now that the question arises that if indeed the missing capstone was part of this original design, it may also have served another resourceful feature in which the flat apex was used as a celestial star chart. So as noted, the Great Pyramid was 5,449 inches at the summit platform, but a total height of 5,814 pyramid inches is what it would be with the capstone. Inasmuch as all the measurements of the Great Pyramid sound credible, you can't validate these measurements. And I found that there's no evidence of the Great Pyramid's measurements, because they just are constantly changing by some small degree. So if you research this for yourself, you're going to know what I mean. The discrepancy comes in true measurements. Since there were once polished encasing stones, which once covered the outside of the pyramid and had been removed over time. Thus, the pyramid lost approximately 30 feet off of its overall dimension. And these dimensions would need to be acquired. However, you have to conclude that amid these uncertain measurements that the Great Pyramid today is no longer 5,449 pyramid inches in height, as erosion, sedimentation, and even perhaps vandalism have taken its toll on this massive ancient structure. But the ever-pervasive laws of entropy, deterioration, combined with the former, all have played a role in reducing its height. But logically, this conclusion can be reached. Here it is. Originally, the 5,449 pyramid inches were based upon the clue of the missing capstone. Again, Enoch and 365 are a viable conclusion. So as you can see, even a theory this well worked out still has its gaps and its holes. There's no way to prove it. So there's so much more about the Great Pyramid with its ramifications, its numerous mathematical coincidences, that they correspond in relationship with the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon. For example, the Great Pyramid aligns with true north, with only one slight degree of error, because the rotation of the Earth in its orbit causes the North Pole to appear to move. Its relationship with pi, 3.14, and the Golden Spiral, 1.618, is uncanny within its proportions. It calculates the following. A, the distance to the Sun and the Moon. B, the Earth's radius, equatorial circumference, volume, and mass. C, the speed of the Earth's orbit around the Sun. It even marks the spring equinox when it casts no shadow at noon, which occurs on March 21st of each year, followed by the fall equinox on September 22nd. The summer solstice occurs on June 21st, the longest duration of daylight, which most call the longest day of the year, and finally on December 22nd, the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, which we just went through a couple of days ago. It's the shortest amount of daylight with the longest night. And on these days, opposite ends of the year, the sun almost seems to pause in its orbit before resuming its course. All of this knowledge points to one person who would be Enoch, the originator of the calendar, and the knowledge given him by superior powers for the henge, which is recorded in his ancient book. That's the thing. It's all there in the book. The coordinates of the Earth locate the Great Pyramid almost at the center of all the land masses of the Earth. And there are those that will deny this, saying that this can be proven wrong with a good map. However, to assess this accurately, the Earth's landmass has to be divided into approximately equal quarters. And the east and the west parallel that cross most of the land, and the north and the south meridian that cross the most land, intersect in two places on the Earth, 30 degrees north by 30 degrees west. One is in the ocean, and the other is on the Giza Plateau, right where the Great Pyramid stands. But what Enoch was actually looking for, what do you need over there, children? I'm doing a radio show. You're interrupting, you're not supposed to. Okay, we'll talk about that when I'm done, okay? Bye. There you go, little familial interlude into the studio. So, let me start that again. The Great Pyramid stands right in the center of this. But what Enoch was really looking for was a solid place on land, which was surrounded by all the other land of the Earth. And this is Giza. So, you can take a look at where Giza sits and look at the land masses. And you can see, if you look at where Giza is located, you can find that. I could throw up a map, but I'm not going to. I didn't prep one for this. I didn't prep any images for today, and I should have. My apologies. Those of you listening, that's not going to bother you. Those of you watching, sorry about that. I don't have my maps up. At one time, the Earth's land surface was all one continent, which was called Pangaea. And the Pangaea theory is one that suggests that all present land continents were once together as a supercontinent. And then there was the land shift. And these pieces of land were separated by the heating of the mantle underneath the Earth's crust, and if the land surface was again restored into one single landmass as it was in Pangaea, Giza would still be in the exact center. And, what's interesting, even the book of Job, it talks, there's an obscure verse, and I don't know, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so I don't have the reference. But in the book of Job, it talks about, it makes a reference to something. Somebody's talking and mentions back in the day that the earth moved and where the land masses were changed. So this was within memory of writing during the time of Job, which is interesting. So what was Enoch's reasoning, do you think? If he was the actual originator, the original builder of the Great Pyramid, what was his reasoning for placing the Great Pyramid at the center of the Earth's landmass? Why was this placement so important? And why would this be done in a time where people didn't seem to know that there was another side of the globe? The Great Pyramid is built on top of a huge sand silica quartz plateau. And directly below the Great Pyramid is a cavity called the grotto, down by the subterranean chamber and the well shaft that is there in the pyramid, which also contains a large granite block. However, its origins are unknown. The granite block, in conjunction with the well shaft, may be the key component to the function of the Great Pyramid, since it may have sent a compression wave. Remember this stuff on frequency? A compression wave, intense shock pulse waves, directed toward the King's Chamber up inside the Great Pyramid, which I've been up in that King's Chamber. You can go up there now. It sent a wave up to the King's Chamber, which is also made of granite, causing a resonance, thus creating a standing wave, a frequency. What about that? And so this standing wave was then pulsed outward from the pyramid to the surrounding granite grids that span all the land continents. This is in theory now. Why was the center of the land masses so important to Enoch? By placing the Great Pyramid in the center of the landmass, and in combination with sand, limestone, granite block, it converts sound vibrations into electromagnetism, creating a sound resonating device. The Earth's crust under the continents is granite. Granite is a rock form essentially of quartz. Limestone is a sedimentary rock composed largely of calcite containing these small cavities of quartz. Quartz has the capability, when it's subjected to mechanical pressure, to produce an electrical voltage called a piezoelectric effect. P-I-E-Z-O electric. Piezoelectric effect, which, when electricity is applied to quartz, vibrates. And when an alternating current is passing through the quartz, it creates an oscillating back and forth and resonant frequency. And the Great Pyramid was capped with white marble-like polished limestone, casing stones. The whole thing was capped in white marble-like polished limestone. These casing stones that lined the pyramid. You can still see some of it. As you look at a picture of the Great Pyramid, you notice a lot of that, and then there's those sections up higher where it hasn't crumbled off and people haven't taken it. And so the Great Pyramid had these casing stones, all forms of granite and quartz, including limestone or calcite, which facilitate and respond to sound. And since the Earth's crust is essentially granite, this frequency travels from the source of the Great Pyramid to the surrounding land continents, similar to the resonance of a chiming bell. So not only did Enoch have this knowledge of frequency according to the ancient passages that he wrote and were written about him, he also had the knowledge of the power of the Hebrew language and its letters, the holy language. However, Enoch didn't want soul power, S-O-L-E, and he wasn't looking to dominate. He was simply following God's orders, and the very reason he was endowed with such knowledge. And Enoch's instructions were to build a device that was not only a calendar, but also a device that would employ the usage and the power of the Hebrew letters. The Hebrew letter that Enoch chose to employ within the Great Pyramid was the Hebrew letter Ayin. That's spelled A-Y-I-N. Now, unlike the Hebrew letter Pe, which we found, and the Bet at the beginning of Genesis, symbolically representing a mouth, Pe was the mouth from the Tower of Babel, the Hebrew letter Ayin symbolically represents the eye, the Ayin or Ayin. And it literally means eye. And the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent God is watching over us. Why do you think we have the all-seeing eye on the backs of our dollar bills over the pyramid? Think about that one for a second. It literally means eye, that God is watching over all. And it is by His power and His law governing all nature that we essentially sustained by the healing frequency of 6.8 hertz. It also signifies that God is always looking from the beginning of the year to the end of the 365 days, and thus signifies the yearly cycle from beginning to end, representing the endless cycle of which God is in complete control. So the Great Pyramid may very well have been the all-seeing eye, noted as the Egyptian Eye of Ra. There's a smaller hidden clue that may hold the proof to this truth. In fact, the founding fathers of the United States of America were such deeply religious men, suspected of being members of the Freemasons, who had charged their descendants with the secret of Egypt, that the symbol of the Egyptian Eye of Ra was placed within a pyramid, quite deliberately on the reverse side of the American $1 bill, as we just mentioned. And so the Hebrew letter Ayin is found within the Great Pyramid. There's a structure, and there is a diagram that I don't have uploaded. And maybe we'll pick up with this finally. The next time we pick this up probably won't be tomorrow, because we're going to do a Christmas show tomorrow. Maybe next Monday we'll pick up with this, and I'm going to show you some of these diagrams that show how you can pull the word ayin or ayin, which derives from nature's law of unit growth, and the geometry and all of this, and how this all works, how it all fits together, how you can find this in the Great Pyramid of Cheops. Now, if that's not mind-blowing enough for you, all of this stuff, the mathematics, the numbers, ask yourself the question, was Enoch of the Bible actually the guy who originally built the Great Pyramid? And perhaps Cheops took in his own name. It all goes back to the calendar stuff. We'll cover this more. We'll review this again when we probably hit this on Monday. So there it is, folks. It's all I got for tonight. So you guys sit tight. Have a Merry Christmas tonight, Christmas Eve. And we'll see you back here for a live show tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for Christmas Day. You guys have a good night. Merry Christmas.